that the committee or council members would like to have pulled.
C1, please.
C1. May I have a motion for approval of the balance of the consent agenda?
Move approval of the balance.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
No, we vote.
What? The vote, that's what I meant. Oh, again, I had to run to the car.
That's okay.
Thank you, and it passes unanimously. First item, please, C1.
Item C1, resolution awarding contract for the purchase of park amenities for neighborhood revitalization strategy areas located in east, north, northeast, and southeast wards.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Royston.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, members of City Council. This item is to replace many of the side amenities, picnic tables, benches, and trash receptacles at parks that are located in the NRSA district. We were able to use CDBG funding to replace these side amenities, and that is basically the gist of this item. We will work to have those items installed over the next calendar year. With the number of items that are being purchased, it's going to be very difficult for us to do it all at one time, but we will have that as part of our constant work plan moving forward.
Councilmember Monday.
Mr. Royston, do we know exactly which parks are impacted? And if so, I'd like to just mention those to the general public so we set the correct expectations, please, sir.
Councilmember Mundy, yes, I can go through those. There are several. Would you like me just to read them out to you?
Is it less than 20?
Yes.
Yeah,
Maybe.
if it's a manageable list, just read the list of names. That's
Yes,
what
sir.
I needed.
At Bloom Park, Bowen, Thomas Park, Brushy Fork, Clark Mickens, Drayton Pines, Fairview, Gateway Commons, Haynes Hosiery, Kingston Greens, Rupert Bell, the Skate Park, Skyland, Bellevue, Central Park, Easton, Forest Park, the Gateway Nature Preserve, and Sprague Street. And there will also be replacing amenities at Kimberly Park as well.
That's exactly what I wanted. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Mr. Royston, could you just give the audience, and if you can't, Ms. Newman or someone, what the NRS strategy areas are and why they are?
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, other council members, Marla Newman, Community Development Director. The neighborhood revitalization strategy areas are areas that are designated and approved by HUD that focus on low to moderate income areas. So based on census data for income, household size, things of that nature, then we submit the census data to HUD, and then it is based on that our allocations of federal monies are determined. And so when we focus on the neighborhood revitalization strategy areas, then those mean those areas automatically qualify for or are eligible for the particular federal dollars.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilmember Monday, Councilmember Clark, and we will wait for the vote. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item C3, resolution authorizing award of housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, funds to Positive Wellness Alliance as a project sponsor.
Ms. Newman.
Good afternoon again, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, and council members. This particular item is a part two, if you will, of a previous item that council approved in 2021 for HOPWA funds. These are very specific funds that are designated for persons, low-income persons, who are either HIV positive or have AIDS, and it provides both housing assistance as well as case management and other services. At the time we came to you before, we had our allocation amount, but we only asked for a commitment of a certain percentage of those dollars until such time as the agency had done other performance and had gotten to the point where they then needed to continue the funding. And so now we're coming to you requesting that the balance of that particular grant award we'd gotten from HUD is now allocated to Positive Wellness Alliance, who received the first round of funding.
Thank you. Councilmember Scipio.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted this pull because I think sometimes our community is not always aware of how we help those who are in severe states. And HIV/AIDS hasn't been talked about a lot in many circles. So I wanted to make sure that we know on the council and the public knows that our city really cares about all of its people. And I was very concerned about, it's a 5-county award.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know that the majority of that money is being spent in Forsyth County. So I thank you for bringing this forward, and I certainly am supportive of the use of these dollars for this.
Thank you. And if I could just add, based on the 5-county area, these funds are allocated similar to what we have with the home fund. So where we have the home consortium between the city and Forsyth County, this particular way that HUD funds these is on geographic areas as well. And so they designated our 5-county area for us to provide the funds for.
Thank you. Madam Chair, with that, I move for approval.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Scipio and seconded by Councilmember Clark. We are ready for the vote. And the motion passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to the general agenda item. Would the clerk please call the first item?
Item G1, resolution awarding contract for the Kimberly Park Hydroponic Farm Management located in the North Ward.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the committee, and city council members.
And could you state your name and title, please, Ms. Poplawski?
Yes. I'm Helen Poplawski. I'm the Director of Sustainability. As part of our department, we have the Food Resilience Program Management, which now includes the oversight of the hydroponics facility and farm. And so it fell to us to rebid out this project. It was initially bid last fall. No bidders were selected at that time. After receiving 2 bids this time back in January, we received one from Hope of Winston-Salem as well as Soul Food Urban Farm. And after a review from a panel, Hope of Winston-Salem was selected for this project, and I have invited today Scott Best and his colleague Salem Kirby from Hope of Winston-Salem to better expand on their plans for this site and how they plan to work with their existing operations and incorporating what this site can do. So I would like to invite them up now to give further details. You can also ask me further questions about this process at the end as well.
All right, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Could you give your name and address, please?
Name and address? Oh,
Yes, for the record.
Perfect. My name is Scott Best. I'm the Executive Director of Hope of Winston-Salem. We are located at 355 Northwest Crawford Place, approximately 100 feet from the Kimberly Park Hydroponics Farm.
And I am Salem Kirby with Hope of Winston-Salem as well.
Thank you all very much for allowing us to come and just say a few words about our vision and dreams of taking on this project. We are in a very fortunate position to have been tied to the project or involved peripherally for a number of years. What we physically do is we provide nutritious meals for children on the weekends. We also provide fresh fruits and vegetables. We move about 2,500 to 3,500 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables into many, many neighborhoods here in Winston-Salem that are void of such resources. A lot of folks do not have access to good, fresh, nutritious food, and we are trying to tackle that head on. Our purpose in submitting a bid was simply because it's a natural extension of what we are already doing, what we already have our infrastructure set up for, our distribution logistics, our cold storage. Everything is already in place for this very natural extension of our mission and our ability to help children and families here in Winston-Salem. A bit more specifics on production and things, I can turn things over to Ms. Kirby.
Sure. So we would also, not only are we hoping to get these foods into the hands of families that desperately need those resources, but we're also hoping to expand our education program that we already have in place. We are currently teaching food education classes at our facility. We would love to have the ability to expand that by bringing the children over to the facility to learn about growing food as well, and offer some other type of classes to the community as well.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee or council members? Councilmembers Monday.
I think this would be directed more towards staff, but I'm not sure. Is there still a staff position that works in conjunction with the folks at Hope?
Yeah. Yes, we have our food resilience program manager, Mariah Gendy, who's also here today. This is really just significantly reducing her role in the project, but yes, because this is still a collaboration, Ms. Gendy will still be involved and offer support to Scott, Salem, and the rest of their team.
And I'm not as familiar with hydroponics. I've probably seen this, but I just don't recall. This is on the expense side. Is there a revenue side? Is there a break-even point or even a payback period for the hydroponics project, or is it designed to work over time as a deficit program?
So there is potential. We did not incorporate that as a major plan for this facility. We really wanted to make sure that it was first and foremost providing that food access, especially that healthy food access to an underserved neighborhood. So that will remain the focus. However, again, in collaboration with our new partners, that could be a development we see in the future. But right now we're really focused on making sure that there is a product growing in there and incorporating it into the operations and the plans that Hope of Winston-Salem has.
Thank you.
Councilmember Scipio.
I think the hydroponics facility is just so fascinating, and it can be such a marvelous place for children to learn about where food really grows and where it comes from, as well as getting some hands-on experience in actually planting. As well as harvesting and eating. So I'm hopeful that that is part of the HOPE program to bring some education to the community. And I would certainly support and actually encourage the sale of some of those wonderful herbs, because I'm always looking for some fresh herbs. So there may be a way to actually make a few dollars out of this.
And if I may elaborate on that, that is a part of our plan as well. We already have an existing market that operates at Hope of Winston-Salem, so we're hoping to incorporate some of those produce items into the market that we already have on Tuesday afternoons where we sell produce from our facility. Thank you.
I want to thank the staff and everybody for us finally getting this project to the goal line. I know that it has not been easy, but I also know that I'm sure staff has made you aware of what the expectations of the council is. To Councilmember Scipio's point, I know I've read the proposals and everything, and I'm sure there'll be some tweaks along the way. But again, we have 2 Title I schools within walking distance of that facility that are elementary school kids that would benefit from that experience on an ongoing basis. We also have a community of a lot of elderly people that would also benefit, and as we know, the demographics states clearly that it is a very low-income community in that area. We have great housing that's been built over the years in collaboration with HUD and Habitat, but we also want to make sure that not only is there a partnership with the community in the area, but there's a partnership with the community as a whole. Some of us have always known of the disparities in resources for food, healthy food, in this community and the country. But I also realize that, again, here comes COVID and changed the whole game of everything. When people were no longer able to get food even from grocery stores that they were used to getting because our economy and logistics and suppliers and producers were shut down during the pandemic. I think this is another resource for our community as a whole, that even though the city, again, we invest in infrastructure and resources. That's what cities do. We don't necessarily make money off of our train station, our parks and recs, our golf courses, and any of that, the ballpark, the fairgrounds, but it is our job, part of providing quality of life to our citizens. So I look to this as another way to ensure that the citizens of Winston-Salem, if they have a need of procuring fresh produce, that not only the hydroponics farm, but also Hope, as in the many decades you've been doing this, will be there to provide that light. That's my hope. Councilmember Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for a 2-year contract, if I understand that's correct?
With the option to renew.
An option to extend it, so it's for the total
Yes,
amount.
for up to 1 year. I apologize for not mentioning that earlier.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes, it's a 2-year initial. With the extension is up to just 1 additional year.
1 additional year, but the $537,000 is to cover the 2-year period?
Yes, that's correct.
And if they extend it for an additional year, what is it? Who covers that?
I believe the estimation was around $230,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. They do have it in the attachment.
Half the amount, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Can we get a report in about 12 months as to how things are going?
Yes, as of right now, our staff plans to work with them to put together regular reports, even semi-annually, potentially quarterly, especially in that first year, just to make sure that everybody is up to date on the progress being made.
Good luck with it, yes.
Yes, thank you.
As well as those quarterly reports, as I've asked, we want to see the production numbers.
Yes.
In pounds and by month, as to, so we can start to plot that data as to when do we expect the crops to come in, how do they, how are they distributed, or how much poundage are we producing. We'd also like to know when there are issues with the farm, if there's a matter of infestation of fungus or anything that prevents the growth of the product, because these things happen. And I also noticed that we need to look at, as you said, over these next couple of years, how do we expand the farm? I know that we have land all around it, but we need to also be looking at whether there are other places in the city that we can, again, allow urban farmers an opportunity to participate in urban agriculture. Okay?
Yes, and our staff member, again, Ms. Gindi, has laid a good framework for these reports, so we will be able to utilize, again, her partnership with Hope to continue that reporting as well as planning.
And one more thing, just like was stated, we'd like to see financial sustainability as we move forward, how Hope or any other organization can sustain this operation without, with minimum input of resources from the city. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I have a first.
Second?
I have a second by Councilmember Mundy, Councilmember Scipio. May we please vote? The motion passes 3-1. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item G2, information from the Community Sustainability Program Committee on recommendations for achieving sustainability goals.
Ms. Poplawski.
Yes, good afternoon once again. I am here this evening on behalf of our chairperson of the Sustainability Committee. He was unable to join us tonight. So I am here to present, just as an information item, a draft of a resolution that the Sustainability Committee has put together, just to give us more specific ways that we can achieve the goals in the resolution from November of 2020, which is one of the attachments. The second attachment is that draft resolution. Upon request, staff did look further into some of the costs associated with these requests. The first point for the consultant firm, and before I go any further, I apologize. There are a couple of members of our committee here tonight who were very nice to join us this evening, so they are here for support. But
And we'll ask them to identify themselves or if they have any comments after. you
yes,
finish.
okay, great. So the initial energy assessment was based on the recent progress that the school system has made. That contract that the school system signed will cost just over $6 million, but we'll expect to net about $6.8 million. For the facilities piece, the numerous different retrofits and energy upgrades, right now there's just not an existing fund to fulfill some of these requirements. We are, in the next item, actually going to talk about one way that we are hoping to fund some of these. And of course, staff will continue to look for funding opportunities, such as grant funds. But at this point, potential LED upfits and HVAC upfits alone could cost a little bit over $1 million. And then, of course, the fleet side of things, I don't have the exact numbers there, but those goals are a little bit stricter than what was included in the first resolution from November 2020. Both of these new goals would put the city with the most ambitious fleet goals in the entire state of North Carolina. So that's just for some additional context. But yes, at this point, just again, would like to say that staff in my office, as well as our fleet staff, are supportive of these sustainability goals and are constantly looking for ways to make progress. But at this point, both from staff capacity and available opportunities, we are still looking for ways, but have not come across any funding to cover what is included in this resolution. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions. Our two members of the committee can answer questions as well. But that's just a little bit of background. And we are open to feedback and comments. We'll take it back to them and rework it as needed.
Councilmember Clark and Councilmember Monday.
It seems like one of the big factors in our sustainability is the electricity we use. And we use a lot of electricity, and if you went to electric vehicles, you'd use even more. But we have very limited control over how our electricity is made. And based on my discussions with Duke Energy, for example, today, if you are driving an electric car in Winston-Salem, you're driving a coal-fired car. Duke is burning coal today. When it's cold outside, they burn coal because there's not enough natural gas to heat the homes and make electricity in this part of the state. So, to me, that's just a tough nut to crack, and how do we do it?
Yes, so to your point, yes, in order to achieve some of the, for instance, 100% renewable energy by 2050, there will need to be some progress made from Duke Energy, since they are the major provider of energy to our entire municipality. We are still able to take smaller steps like the solar going on top of the Bryce Stewart building. It'll cover about 10% of the energy needs of that building. With energy upgrades, though, it would cover potentially up to 20% of it. So, we can do things like that on our facilities, just sort of small projects here and there. But you are correct that, yes, in order to achieve some of these, I do foresee much more progress needing to be made from Duke Energy.
Do you think they will? I mean, Duke's doing a lot. Matter of fact, over half of Duke's electricity right now is non-carbon. Over half, just not our half. I think Duke might be the highest percentage of any major utility in the country as far as the amount of non-carbon electricity they produce. But I just see there are a lot of solar plants going in the eastern part, a lot of wind going in the eastern part. You got nuclear down in the southern part of the state. But I don't know, just that we're at the mercy of Duke Energy, and that concerns me.
Yes, they do have a utility-wide goal of net zero carbon by 2050. So they are creating plans to work towards that. So the interim goals that we have may be a little tougher to reach, actually, because they still plan to have coal plants online through 2034, according to their carbon plan, integrated resource plan. That was just released last year. So depending on how much progress they make in the interim, that one may be a little tougher to reach. But by 2050, if Duke is able to reach the goals that they have set, then we should as well.
We will. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Monday.
Thank you.
And then Councilmember McIntosh.
Just as a follow-up to what you said, I can't remember which city it was, but one of the fire departments that's using electric engines generates enough energy through their solar panels to charge all of their engines, and I think have enough money left over to sell. So I don't think we're at the mercy of Duke Power at all. I think we're at the mercy of thinking conventionally instead of thinking out of the box and being awarded and rewarded for innovation at the city. So I know you sent me a plan for sustainability several weeks ago, and I looked over it at the time, and I just can't recall. One of the things that I always feel like is missing, and it may be that you just don't want us to get too far in the weeds, I see goals, but I don't see tactics, which makes me worry that the tactics aren't there. We'll get to 30% by doing the following things in the following numbers. So I would feel better knowing that the tactics are in place. And that would also, I think, help us begin to think what we have to budget to get there. So just if you could start presenting plans a little more fleshed out, if you will.
Yes, I actually do have those plans, so that is part of why I have my annual sustainability report that reports on the progress. But the internal sustainability action plan that I have are the exact steps that we have in order to reach those goals. Now, I will say it was created before the November 2020 goals, which is why those do not align. However, because that was set as a 4-year plan, I do start to work on the update for that actually in the next fiscal year, and I will incorporate action steps in order to reach those goals that were put in place after, once again, I released that plan in the first place. But we do have those. In fact, we've achieved a lot of the goals that I have in that plan, including funding solar projects and identifying future sites for solar, as well as waste reduction, Bee City USA. So I promise they're there, and we're working on it. It's just...
Yeah, I feel like what we're looking at is so high level, I don't know what's going on down here. So And one other thing, I don't know that this is a sustainability responsibility, but you would be part of it. Just like we measure demographics for our vendors to see who they're working with and who they're hiring, I think we should start measuring sustainability efforts on the part of our vendors. And if they're not working towards sustainability, we don't need to be giving them business. I don't know how we accomplish that. It's probably a question for city manager or someone else, but if we don't have a world to work in, it really doesn't matter what color the people are.
Yes, there are examples of sustainable purchasing policies that other cities have internally, so I imagine that's what you're talking about, it sounds like, which would include, of course, a conversation with other departments, but
I would
yes.
love to see that in place by the end of our fiscal year, Mr. City Manager.
Good evening, Chairman Adams and Member Tim and members of the City Council. We'll do some research on that. There may be some legal limits. We'll have to work with the City Attorney's Office on what we can and can't do.
Thank you. Councilman McIntosh.
Yeah, I know that it's frustrating to everybody involved to not be able to just jump out and buy the vehicles that will solve the problem. And I've said this before, but you know, there will be a time when we will be able to get the exact vehicles that we want, that have the mileage, that will not require us to add as much infrastructure for charging stations. And I think we're closer than we all realize. I mean, the Ford F-150 Lightning is, you know, a pickup truck that gets has a 400-mile range. So to buy, you know, earlier models that get a 200-mile range, you know, it just the economies of scale are not there. But to go to Councilmember Clark's thing about you know, using coal-fired electricity to run our electric cars, the internal combustion engine is a very inefficient way to move vehicles around the road. So no matter how efficient we've become, and 30, 40, 50 miles a gallon is not out of the question on vehicles now, it's still much less efficient than burning even dirty sources of fuel to generate electricity on a mass scale and get them out. I mean, just moving gasoline from place to place, refining gasoline. So it's far more environmental friendly to use electricity for our vehicles, even if the source of the fuel to make that is not, you know, as environmental friendly as we would like it to be.
Yes, thank you. And to Councilmember Mundy's point about the solar charged EV stations, I believe that example was from Charlotte, North Carolina. I know that they have multiple examples of solar power EV charging stations. So yes, there are ways that it can be done where it isn't necessarily fueled by fossil fuels.
I believe that, you know, we all want to see us do better. But again, my question always to the citizenry is, what are y'all willing to give up to get there? You know, when we start talking about funding and even the hydroponics and everything, what are we willing to sacrifice to get there? Are we willing to sacrifice the now for the future? And if we can't get past that or come together and find some consensus that 60,000 people, if you put it on the ballot, it may not come out the way you want it to or you think it will, because people aren't willing to give up the now. And I think that's something that, you know, our environmental groups, the Sustainability Commission, I was on it in 2008, I understand. But at the end of the day, it's about the process and it's about the progress of how do we get from point A to point B without upending the house and the lives of our citizens, that they feel like they didn't have a say between, do I get a fire truck or a sanitation truck, that now I'm used to my refuse being picked up at 7 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and I put the carts back before I leave to go to work. But they're now driving these electric chargeable vehicles, and those vehicles only can make one round every 2 or 3 hours. So now the productivity, the efficiency of the job and the service now becomes questionable to the customer. Again, I know we all want to get there, but just like we've heard, I want us to think this through too. I don't have a problem with going all electric. I have no problem with going all solar panels, but there is a cost. As Councilmember Clark said, there's a cost. And the financials right now, if we wanted to purchase all of these parts and pieces, would we really be able to do it? I'm gonna look at the chair of finance. Would we? Would we?
Well, they would be expensive, but the other thing is you can't get them.
Yeah, they're not available.
Correct.
Yes.
we waited too
Correct.
late.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, no, it's not waited too late. The entire world is still suffering from
Logistics and suppliers.
issues. And the world's working on it, but there's still all sorts of issues out there as far as getting stuff.
Yeah, my point, though, is that we were leading from behind, and where many other cities started this years before we did, they have so many more because they did start early, was my point.
Well, I mean, you want to save gasoline, get rid of recycling. We drive a truck by your house twice, once to pick up one container, once to pick up the other. 30% of the recycling we pick up, we haul to the landfill. You want to save electricity, cut out 20 trucks that get 6 miles to the gallon.
And that goes back to, like I said, what is it that we're willing to give up?
What are you willing to give up?
And we've talked about this. I voted that we retain the recycling because how can you be a city of the future and there are certain check boxes you have to have for even companies to look at you now? Whether it's recycling, sustainability, do you have charges? Is it in the plan? How's your school systems? Do y'all, there's a lot of check boxes now that companies check and they send out their auditors or investigators. And if they find that you don't check the boxes that they want to affiliate their brand with, they won't be coming to your city. That's another reason I tell people Guilford County, Alamance, and all of them got together and they decided that if they wanted Toyota and they wanted Boom and they wanted all these other things, they didn't have the housing stock. They didn't have the infrastructure stock, streets, roads, bridges, schools. So they passed a bond and let the citizenry decide that, yeah, we want to be a next level city, so we got to do this now. And they did it, but the citizens voted for it. The council and the commissions, they put it out there. They voted to put it out there. But to do a lot of the things that we want to do for the future, next 3 to 5 years, we're going to have to do the same thing in Winston, just like Charlotte and everybody else did. Councilmember Monday.
Just wanted to note that Greensboro, I don't know how many other cities operate this way, but Greensboro has one department that deals with sustainability programs that are currently running, like recycling, and another department that deals with sustainability plans for the future. I don't see how one department can do both. So I think that's also something we need to look at if we're serious about sustainability. I just don't see how one person and one department can possibly do both.
I am currently working on what I'm calling a benchmarking report for sustainability work across the state right now, and I'm looking at 25 municipalities, including ours, to really understand better how cities are approaching this. And in fact, we do have the largest Office of Sustainability tied with Raleigh in the state, more if you do count our new recycling division with the additional 14 staff. But yes, Raleigh has that new chief sustainability officer, only hired last year. However, they do have some members of planning who are involved. I know that our members of our planning staff are very aware of the importance of sustainability and resilience and do plan to incorporate it. And this is just based on my conversation, so I do not want to put this out there. It may change, but I do know that they are concerned about planning for the future in those areas as well. So I do not feel like I'm alone. I know that our fleet staff as well is very supportive, my staff, and those in other departments as well.
Any other questions or comments? I do know that, again, because we're dealing with a shortage of people, employees, resources, human resources, that a lot of cities, we're going in a couple of weeks to the Congressional Cities of the National League of Cities. Councilmember McIntosh can tell you the League of Municipalities. We are looking at, again, future work that back in the day, you know, everybody had a department for this, a department for that. There's going to be overlap like what we're even doing here in the city, whereas we got to overlap some of our departments in order to even get the work done. So that some departments that don't have the numbers, people have left, we've not been able to hire, that other team members are stepping in to help. And that's what other cities are doing now too. You've got to figure out what departments align with each other's, the purpose, the vision, whatever, so that we can get these things done. This is for information only. Are there any comments or other questions? I'd like to hear from the Sustainability Committee members. If you guys would come up and give me a minute or two. Because I know that we all appreciate what you do, all of the people that volunteer for the city. Now, granted, we want your input. I tell people that, but sometimes we have to look at the big picture and we can't bite it all at one time. But go ahead and give us your comments on what you think on today's presentation.
Well, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the committee.
And your name and address.
My name is Rajesh Kapileshwari. I live in 447 Dartmouth Road in the Buena Vista area. And I've been on the committee for about 3 years. Next year, I roll off. So I want to get something done over here. So thank you for this opportunity. First of all, we're very grateful that in 2020, you passed a resolution with some targets and goals. But you know what they say, a goal without a plan is just a dream. So we are here basically asking for the detailed plan. And every year that we miss out on that plan, it's going to get harder. So I understand the apprehension and the challenge of the logistics and even the financial burdens that may come, but these are not going to get easier. So the earlier we plan, the better it's going to get. Now, why do we have to plan now? 2 reasons. One is the Inflation Reduction Act is coming. There's going to be funding for all these things we're talking about. And then the infrastructure bill also has some funding. If we don't have shovel-ready projects, we may not be in the right place in the right time. So the request is, let's do our homework, come up with projects, specifics, and 2-3 years ago, we had a conversation with Councilmember Clark that the lighting retrofits you guys did at one of the parking garages had a 2-year payback. Now imagine that lighting is going to last about 30 years. In 2 years, you recover the money. The next 28 years, you're saving money. So those are the projects we are trying to highlight over here: lighting retrofits, replacing of the old air conditioning systems, changing the thermostats to smart thermostats, using equipment less, turning off equipment. All these have a payback, and they're very attractive. If I told you 12% return of investment, would you go for it? You would jump at it. That's what we are talking about. Those are the projects we're trying to find. And I know the city is very busy. Maybe they need to hire a third party to come up with a plan and to give a plan to highlight these items. So the whole thrust is to come up with a plan. And we can discuss all the, the electricity and what Duke is doing. All those are relevant issues, very understandable. But things are moving, things are changing. We just have to be ahead of the curve to make use of all the funding that's going to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christy Robinson. I'm Northwest Ward and in the same committee, the Community Sustainability Program. Yes,
Address.
4256 Saddlewood Forest Drive.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm so excited that this board and this committee is taking time to review the proposal put forth. The resolution that was set forth, number 20-0499 in 2020, said that the city was interested in reducing, or was committed to establishing a goal to reduce 40% of greenhouse gas by 2025 and 50% clean renewable energy by 2030 and 100% clean renewable energy by 2050. Just as Raj said, these goals need to be implemented in a systemic way, that we need to have a plan moving forward. Our committee has used our expertise and enthusiasm to help the city work on what these next steps can be. The time for action is now, like Raj was saying. There's an abundance of funding directly related to sustainability with the bipartisan infrastructure bill. There is money. I sit on, along with Raj, that I sit on the Sustainability Committee for Winston-Salem Forsyth County School District. In November, they passed an enormous goal to reduce their energy use, and through that, part of that goal is they employed a company called Synergistics Energy. And what Synergistics committed to was reducing energy use in the entire school district by 25% in 5 years. That it will cost money a bit upfront. It will completely be paid for, and millions of dollars will be made. So by the end of 5 years, Synergistics their bill will be paid, and money will be made by the district by saving all of that energy to reinvest. So that's a 5-year turnaround. And Raj likes to talk about low-hanging fruit, and this is part of what Synergistic looks at with the school district. It's already started. They're already taking inventory of all schools in the district, and they're talking about reducing, going to LED lighting. They're talking to having light switches that turn off when no one's in the room, and then when they turn back on, they just turn back on at 50%. This is not investing a lot of extra money. It's just looking at what we're already doing and being smarter about it. And these are some of the things that our committee has talked more specifics about. It was a bit high level in the resolution proposed, but we do have actionable items that we would love to look more deeply into.
Thank you. I look forward to the Sustainability Committee as well as the Piedmont Environmental Alliance working together with the city's sustainability to come up with items or action items or whatever for the plan. I welcome it, and the council does too. This is your lane. Work your lane. You know, because it's not like we're going to go out and do all of the investigative and studying and reviewing that you do. You're plugged into it. So I look forward to seeing this plan in the very, very near future. And I agree, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, but somebody has to bring the plan to us. Again, that's why we got all these commissions and committees, is that we look for you to help do the homework for us so we can make the right decisions. So we embrace it, and I look forward to seeing the plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
This item is for information only. Will the clerk please call the next item, please?
Item G3, information on community projects funding.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee and council. I'm Tiffany Oliva, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs and Strategic Initiatives. I'm also joined today by Fire Chief Mayo, Bear Team Director Kristen Ryan, and Sustainability Director Helen Poplawski to talk a little bit about our community project funding application for fiscal year 24. United States Congresswoman Manning of NC 6 opened her community projects funding application on March 3rd, and we did anticipate the opening of the application, so we'd already started working with department heads and with the management team to collect different ideas on what we might be able to submit to Congresswoman Manning. For general public knowledge, the House Appropriations Committee uses the community project funding to allow members of Congress to secure targeted federal funds for projects and programs to address significant community needs. This year, unlike the past couple of years, in our request to Congresswoman Manning, we had to consider a couple of challenges that we might have to overcome. So first of that being that the House Appropriations Committee has limited requests from each congressperson from 25 to 15 requests that they can submit. And also they limited the number of accounts that we could request in. And then the third is that, of course, Congresswoman Manning holds a smaller portion of Winston-Salem than she has in the past couple of years. So with that being said, we really worked hard with staff to identify projects that might be most competitive in consideration of all of those factors. So this year, we're planning to submit by 11:59 p.m. tonight to Congresswoman Manning for Priority 1, a $700,000 request for expansion of the Behavioral Evaluation and Response Team, and this will go under the account of the Department of Justice. This request is for general operating support for year 2 of the BEAR team, but also to request 4 additional crisis counselors for that team. The second request is $575,000 for the Joycelyn V. Johnson Municipal a services center for energy efficiency upgrades that Helen Poplawski actually had in her sustainability plan. And it was actually neat to hear some of the things that Christy and Rajesh, I'm sorry if I didn't say that right, outlined as some of the things that we need to be investing in. So that request will be for solar panel installation at that facility, LED upgrades, dimming and occupancy sensors, HVAC upgrades, and a level 2 charging station. I'm happy to take any questions about that, about those 2 requests, and I also, in your information item, outlined what we've previously been awarded in other fiscal years.
Thank you. I think I sent an email to some of you wanting to know, I saw the call. I'm sure the rest of them did too. I saw the email, and I immediately emailed you guys, like, are we on this? My question is, for the public, is I would have liked to have seen what other projects were in the queue to be considered. I know the map of District 6. I know it's just a small northeast, east, slightly southeast of Forsyth County or Winston-Salem. But I really would like to know what other projects were in the queue. I do know that the BEAR initiative is getting a lot of monies and looks at, and I see their name everywhere for grants. I have no issue with that because it doesn't just serve, and it was strategic, it doesn't just serve the Congresswoman's district, it serves the whole city, basically, this initiative. But again, just like the awarding that we got earlier this year of Runnymede, I didn't know that, and Councilmember McIntosh and Clark, I have nothing against that project. Again, when we make decisions, whether it's for Transportation Advisory Committee, as Councilmember Larson knows, I think that we, the council, needs to know what is in the queue. We need to have a look at the queue before, I know staff knows best, you're the subject matter experts, but we need to be able to review it to see if we are all in agreement with it. And if that's the main ones that we should be going for. Other than that, any questions or comments? Councilmember Monday.
Kind of a follow-up, thank you. The follow-up to that question is, Lowry Street is, I can't tell from the map, is in the 6th district, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And then the money spent for BEAR, would we have to allocate a certain amount for expenses in the 6th district, or
I don't
we
think
put
that
it into the pot and it goes wherever it needs to go?
I think that part of that decision would be left to Congresswoman Manning to decide. There are 5 designated fire stations in Congresswoman Manning's district, but we did outline this as a citywide program and outline that there are 5 fire stations there.
Okay, thank you.
One more comment. Again, I heard you say that you felt like these were the best projects that we thought we could compete with. But again, I think that we need to look at the big picture of the categories that we thought we wanted or could apply for or use. Again, I just think we need to see, I need to see the list. Whether the other council members wants to see it or not, I want to see it.
See you, everybody.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Clark. This is for information, and I know you have until tonight, and that's okay, but I'd like you guys, somebody's got that list of those.
I have it on me right now.
All right, could you email that to the council? Councilmember McIntosh.
Recognizing what Mayor Pro Tem says, I want to say thank you. You play in a ball game where the field goal or the goalposts move all the time, and from one year to the next, you and Leslie does a great job lining us up. And it's tough to get information to us all the time in the format that we want it. But I just want to say thanks for your work. You've done a really good job. With a couple of exceptions here, but thank you for what you've done.
Councilmember Clark.
2 things, just for the record, Runnymede is in
His ward.
And secondly, we will be at Congressman Manning's office in approximately 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Talking about this.
And we did just get that appointment scheduled, so it's on the books.
Great,
Great.
thank you.
Any other? Also, and I know this is way down the line or maybe too late, I would like to see North Carolina, like some conferences I go to when we go to the Hill, North Carolina's delegation sometimes meets at once in some big room or somewhere. We are at a pivotal point of 14 congresspersons, and I think we need to start looking at letting them, just like the legislator does, they need to speak to the whole body so we hear the big picture together versus all of the Congress people from North Carolina. We need their votes. If Winston-Salem or Forsyth County is, going after something and we need their support, we need for all of us to be in the room at some point and to hear from these Congress people. We really do. So I'd like to see you work on that with Leslie or possibly other urban cities or counties, Guilford, Mack, Wake, Durham, that we need to get with these people because the maps are probably going to change next year. They're going to change, and I think this is an opportune moment for us to get our foot in the door with these, particularly half of them are new, and maybe we can get some traction.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item G4, authorization to convey 4 city-owned vacant lots located in the Cleveland Avenue neighborhood to Habitat for Humanity of Forsyth County for the purpose of increasing the supply of affordable housing for low and moderate income persons as permitted by SL 2021-44 SB 145.
Mr. King.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. As stated, this is a request. It falls in our affordable housing category. This is a request of Habitat for Humanity to convey 4 city-owned lots. They are vacant lots. They are surplus lots. And the request would be to convey these to Habitat Humanity for the sum of $1 each, a total of $4, for the purpose of expanding and increasing our supply of affordable housing within the community. We're using our legislation we received from the General Assembly 2 years ago to do this with. This is very similar to what we did with True Homes for the lots in Ridgewood in November of last year. So in looking at the map you have on your screen there, this shows you where these 4 lots are located. 2 of them are on 18th Street. You can see those on the top of that map, and then the other 2 lots are side by side. They're located between 25th and 26th Street, just east of Dunleith Avenue. And I know Habitat has looked through our inventory of city-owned lots for which ones they can move on quickly. These are 4 they have identified, and I believe they are ready to go on these as soon as possible and get this moving very soon. So glad to answer any questions.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Not so much a question, just a comment. I love a pilot program. I think it's great that we're getting off the ground, getting something done. Maybe we can't do all of them, but let's get some of them done, do proof of concept. Let's get moving. I applaud this method, and I appreciate you working on this for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for
Councilmember Mundy.
Thank you. Each of these is listed with some tax value. Do we track these when we consolidate all of the money that we've spent towards affordable housing? Do we track what I would call in the private industry in-kind gifts?
I don't know that we have a running list on that, Councilmember Mundy. I will tell you that as we deal with some of these housing-related items where we use that legislation that came from the General Assembly, what it does is it allows council really on a case-by-case basis to negotiate the sale and the terms of that. So you may remember on Ridgewood, those lots, True Homes paid us tax value for those lots. I think the original amount was like $608,000, and we dropped it down to 20 or so lots in the $400,000 range. Again, this is a little different set of circumstances, so we're looking at $1 per lot here. So again, it'll be a little different on each case, but I don't know that we have a running total of that.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember McIntosh.
I think what you're getting to, or how I would look at this as a cost, we've got this magic $25,000 per door number that we aim for to try to, keep things looking the same when we were subsidizing projects. If we went out and bought this land and then gave it to somebody, I would calculate how many doors we're getting on that piece of land and what we paid for it, or is it still within the $25,000 a door? Now, we own this. Tax value is not something that we paid for it. So we're not foregoing any dollars. There's no dollars coming out of our pocket in order to give this to Habitat. So I look at that a little differently.
Just as a follow-up, I understand that when we get pinged and dinged from some of our activists whose hearts are in the very right place, but they don't realize, in fact, how much we do spend on affordable housing when it's tens of millions of dollars. I didn't know if that quote of money that we give includes value of land.
Point well taken.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
We need a
May I have a motion?
I move approval.
second.
The motion has been moved and seconded by Councilmember Clark, Councilmember Scipio. May we have the vote? And Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I just did a quick on behind the envelope, back of the envelope, and it'll take, with the added value of these homes, it'll take about 3 years of taxes on them to recoup the tax value of the lot. So that's a pretty good return. And that's a real rough estimate, but close enough.
Thank you.
Okay. All hearts and minds clear? This meeting is adjourned.